Access. Welcome to NFL Total Access. I'm Rhett Lewis. Steve Smith Sr. and Brian Baldinger will join me shortly, and so will Bucs edge rusher and upcoming free agent Shaq Barrett. Now, he said he's coming back at the Tampa Bay Boat Parade, but does what's said at a boat parade, you know, in the moment, carry weight? One thing's for sure, we will ask him when he joins us live. So there's plenty of soon-to-be free agents out there, like Shaq Barrett, who, though, don't know if they will be back with their 2020 squad. Is that the case for Juju Smith-Schuster and the Steelers? Steve Smith Sr. has the answer. But we begin with Trevor Lawrence. Let's get to it. Anointed as a generational talent before ever stepping onto the field at Clemson, Lawrence more than lived up to the hype, engineering another national title for Clemson in 2018. And no quarterback has thrown more than Lawrence's 90 passing touchdowns the last 3 years. And he's also added 18 scores on the ground. Lawrence checks in as our Daniel Jeremiah's #1 overall prospect and slotted as the Jags' #1 pick in both DJ and Bucky Brooks' first mock drafts. His 3,100-plus passing yards this year and 32 total touchdowns, earning him a second-place finish in this year's Heisman voting. So here they are, Steve Smith and Brian Baldinger. Guys, let's dig into it here on Trevor Lawrence. And Steve, with that kind of resume, sure doesn't seem like there's a lot to prove for Trevor Lawrence. What do you need to see from him at tomorrow's Pro Day?
Well, I don't need to see anything particular because I don't make the decisions. I just get the opportunity to drive down there and see what really does Trevor Lawrence. Is there a chink in his armor? And the answer is most likely is going to be no. This is really just a dress rehearsal to say, hey, my body of work speaks for itself. What you see is what you get. I believe he will be throwing dimes all over the place. So I'm going to bring my Crown Royal, my mom's Crown Royal bag and go ahead and put some nickels in there because I know she plays Keno on the weekends.
I'm looking forward to being on the broadcast with you tomorrow right here on NFL Network, 10 a.m. Eastern time for that Pro Day. Baldy, look, #1 is a number that Trevor Lawrence is very familiar with. He was the #1 high school recruit coming out. He brought Clemson to a national title in his first year as a starter and now the presumptive #1 overall pick. So when you dig into his skill set, though, what's the #1 thing about Trevor Lawrence that allows you to believe he's lived up to the hype?
Well, you know, when he stepped on the campus at Clemson, I mean, it only took a couple of weeks before he took the job with his command of the offense and took him straight to a national championship game and carved up Alabama. I just got done watching it. I mean, the good thing when you evaluate Trevor, Rhett, is you see a lot of NFL throws. Throws where guys like Quinnen Williams are blasting him, and he's staying in there and taking a hit and delivering the ball. This is a deep vertical passing offense thrown to T. Higgins, Hunter Renfrow, guys that are now playing in the NFL, and he was able to get the ball down the field regularly with accuracy and still take a hit. And then his movement and his size are bonuses, I think, at this point. So, I'm a little bit like Steve right here. What you're going to see tomorrow is a dress rehearsal, but it's really, he came in with the hype, he delivered on the hype, and then his command of the offense and the command that he's shown for 36 starts. Played a lot of football, and that counts for a lot when you're evaluating him.
You're absolutely right, Baldy, because when you play that many snaps, when you go down a list of guys who are in the NFL or attempting to maintain their eligibility or their opportunity to stay on a roster, a guy like Dwayne Haskins comes to mind because he doesn't even have beyond 20 starts. And why is that important? Because sometimes you can't get a complete evaluation of a guy. But Trevor Lawrence, that's not the case. He has enough starts, and really it's just an opportunity to see what are some of those little things that whoever's going to pick them, right? We don't know yet. Whoever's going to pick them, what little things do they have to work on heading into training camp that he needs to improve on or to get quicker, because the pass rush at the NFL level is quicker. It's not that he's playing in SEC and it isn't as quick, but it's just a little bit faster. We got a guy coming up, Shaq Barrett, that will show you and tell you how much faster it is, the impact that he had into the game on the Super Bowl.
Steve, when you get down there to Clemson, you'll see a variety of team evaluators, but you'll also see the Jags well represented there. Head coach Urban Meyer, new offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell, and passing game coordinator Brian Schottenheimer all expected to be in attendance. As for the current #1 in the NFL, yeah, that distinction belongs to the Tampa Bay Bucks and 7-time Super Bowl champion quarterback Tom Brady, who, according to our Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport, played most of this season with some discomfort in his knee and will have a minor procedure, a surgery this offseason that Bucs head coach Bruce Arians called a cleanup. So for more now, let's bring in our pal Tom Pelissero. And Tom, let's start, though, with Russell Wilson here. Obviously, he's been in the news lately, voicing his frustration about the amount of hits he's taken recently as the Seahawks quarterback and wants to be a bit more involved in personnel decisions. Is there a scenario here where Russell Wilson's going to be on the move?
Well, Red, amidst all this media hoopla, what I can tell you is more and more teams are calling the Seahawks about Russell Wilson. But in speaking to those teams, I can also tell you to this point, Seattle has shown no inclination to trade its star quarterback. Let's look at the facts here. Russell Wilson's under contract for another 3 years and $69 million. He has a no-trade clause, which means effectively he can dictate where he would be traded if the Seahawks decided they actually wanted to trade him. In terms of input, he has had input with a variety of things in Seattle, including the recent offensive coordinator hire with Shane Waldron. Wilson had a big voice in that. Also, Wilson has pushed the Seahawks for years on personnel decisions to add more star players, including Antonio Brown, who Wilson just watched go to Tampa and win a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. This is just the first time that Wilson is saying these things publicly, and he's going to keep talking. He's been on a media tour, a bunch of radio shows, a GQ interview. Tomorrow he'll be on Ellen with his wife Sierra, pitching a new a smell, a new whatever you call it, a cologne, a perfume, whatever it is. Okay. The more he keeps talking, the more people are going to have questions about what's going on. That includes the Seahawks.
This is interesting. This is interesting. All right.
Fragrance is the word I was thinking of. Fragrance is the word.
There we
go.
Get
it next time.
Way to work, Tom Pelissero. Thanks for the insight. Appreciate that. Back here now with Baldy and Steve. So, amidst all that we've seen now with Russell Wilson and some perceived discontent, Baldy, are you envisioning a scenario? Are you buying a scenario here where Russell Wilson is not the starting quarterback for the Seahawks next year?
I started every single game for 9 straight years, including playoffs and Super Bowls and whatnot. But to use Tom's little term there, the fragrance I don't think is real good between Russell Wilson and the organization right now. For Russell to come out and call out his offensive line, not protecting him well enough. Teams are calling right now. At least 4 teams have called, inquiring. I'm sure Seattle is not listening right now, but I mean, if this continues on right now, I think Russell Wilson and a lot of star players looked at Tom Brady, leave New England, go to Tampa with a really good team around him, and said, we can win right away. And really, these quarterbacks, all they want are Super Bowl championships. They want more than one. And so I think, and they want opportunities to win them. And so if there's an opportunity someplace else, I think I think he could be wedged out of there, but it's up to Seattle to see what the compensation would be.
Steve, you buying it?
Baldy, I look at it like this. If teams are calling, hey, I've been married for 20 years. I understand and I'm used to dealing with no. But hey, when you get a yes, clear the room out. We got business to handle. And that's really the end of the day. When teams are calling, you got to listen just a little bit, just a smidgen, because you're always building. What they say, it's the NFL, but amongst players, amongst the older guys, young guys, we always tell them, not for long league. So you understand that you're expendable. The more you can do, you keep you around until, all of these things are said in the NFL. So understanding that you are an independent contractor that can only work in 32 cities.
Sure.
And if that city that you want to work in doesn't have a football team, then you can't work in that city. So he understands that, and he's willing to leverage what he needs or what he wants. So go ahead and let him do what he does.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, though. It's not like he's in Deshaun Watson's situation in Houston where they really struggled this year. I mean, the Seahawks won the division, right? And they don't feel like they're that far away from being a real contender again this year. Speaking of Houston, Steve Smith Sr., Nick Caserio has said since he took over as the general manager that he has no interest in trading Deshaun Watson despite his trade request. Is that a mistake if that line of thinking continues, Steve, if they don't trade Deshaun?
Well, it's pretty much, you know, the Houston Texans have started off in 2021 the same way we all kind of felt about COVID in 2020, a dumpster fire. We want to get that in the rearview mirror, and that seems like they're still in that dumpster fire. And the Houston Texans need to understand and figure out that they can only hide behind the COVID and hide behind protocols so long. They will have to answer questions because we have a lot of them. And keeps in the status quo of, well, we're not interested. Well, Deshaun doesn't seem very interested in playing quarterback for you either. So it's a fork in a roll, and Deshaun has put the fork in that roll, and he is saying, I do not want to be here based off his words, his actions. He's not answering the calls to anybody. So I think it's very interesting. They're going to have to answer some questions, even though they don't seem to want to answer those questions.
Well, they are avoiding the question, Steve. He does have a no-trade clause in his contract. Not many players in this league have that. So he's got a little bit of control there. But, you know, if you're Nick Caserio and there are teams that are calling to see just what it would take. I mean, we just saw Matt Stafford go from Detroit to the Rams, all right, for pretty much a king's ransom. Deshaun Watson would command more than that. I mean, you should at least explore the possibility of what a team might give up for the services of Deshaun Watson, who is 25 years old. And, I mean, the prime, how long it's going to last, it might be another 10 years for Deshaun Watson of great football. I'm sure Houston knows that. They don't want him to go. But I would at least listen to the phone calls right now, maybe even make a few phone calls.
Yeah, and while all this continues, so too does the turmoil in Houston. As we saw earlier this week, Houston Texans team president Jamie Roots resigned. Thanks, guys. Whole lot of discussion, debate, and